Good evening. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Melissa Ridgen. Public Safety Minister Bill Blair appeared before the Senate yesterday for the second time in 2 days. Blair and other ministers were questioned on the government's response to ending anti-Black and anti-Indigenous racism in Canadian police forces. Jamie Pasha-Gumscombe reports.
Public Safety Minister Bill Blair phoned into his press conference today. He said he is working hard to ensure the investigation into Chantel Moore's death is comprehensive. He says more Indigenous policing could reduce racism within law enforcement.
As we have already indicated, it is our intention to bring forward a new legislative framework for Indigenous policing right across Canada. But we also propose that would be co-produced with Indigenous communities and Indigenous leadership. The importance of co-production of such a new framework, it absolutely is essential that Indigenous voices and leadership inform all of those discussions and decisions. In the Senate on Thursday, Independent Senator Mary Jane McCallum of Manitoba asked a question on behalf of AFN Quebec Regional Chief Ghislain Picard. Picard says more Indigenous policing is a good move, but so is stronger civilian oversight of the RCMP.
My answer is yes. Yes, I absolutely commit to working on those things, but I think more importantly, I want to also commit to Chief Picard and to you. We're not going to do that in isolation. We're going to do that with the Indigenous leadership in this country.
Conservative Senator Donald Neil Plett asked why Indigenous Services Minister Mark Miller and Crown Indigenous Relations Minister Carolyn Bennett were not there.
I find it very, very troubling indeed that neither of our two ministers responsible for Indigenous affairs could bother to be here today when we have it on good sources that they are in Ottawa and they are not in this chamber. That is a sad reflection of what this government, what their responsibility is toward this very, very serious issue.
Bennett's spokesperson said she was not asked to attend, and Mark Miller said he was unable to be there but is willing to attend in the future. Jamie Pasha-Gumscombe, APTN National News, Ottawa.
The CEO for the Canadian Museum for Human Rights in Winnipeg has stepped down effective immediately. This follows allegations of systemic racism and discrimination and sexual harassment at the museum. The museum released a statement Thursday evening. It said that the Board of Trustees and CEO John Young felt he should leave now. Young had said that he would finish out his contract ending in August. But this week, CBC reported new allegations. Several female employees said nothing was done after a male colleague sexually harassed them. Previously, the museum admitted to censoring LGBTQ content for certain religious groups. The Canadian Museum of History learned an important lesson this week. That lesson? If you're going to post Bannock to social media, you better bring the good stuff. Our Kent Driscoll has a story of the batch of Bannock gone bad.
According to the Canadian Museum of History in Gatineau, Quebec, this is Bannock. They call it, quote, a more recent manifestation of long-enduring Indigenous traditions of making bread from locally available ingredients. This photo appeared on their Facebook page this week. According to the people we talked with, and the many comments on the museum's Facebook page, this burned husk of a pancake is not what Indigenous Bannock looks like. Not even close. The comment section blew up. My partner would pack my things in a garbage bag and send me back to Cookum's if my fry bread turned out like this. Looks like these fell out of a food truck, into powwow arbor dirt, got trampled on by the little kids running around under the bleachers, kicked aside by the fancy dancers during grand entry, rediscovered and dusted off quickly just seconds before the photo was taken in hopes that nobody would notice how banged up, dirty, and depressing they look. Please, for the love of Bannock and fry bread, change the picture. LOL, it's weirding us all out. On the streets of Iqaluit, too.
It's like if I was 9 years old, my Bannock would look like that.
To me, it's not a Bannock. Bannock is the Bannock to me because I grew up with the Bannock.
It just looks so, they look more savory and sort of crusty than they did the light, fluffy Bannock that I'm used to, like even fried Bannock.
Tim Fontaine has reported extensively on Bannock and its history. He points out, while it is a food that many Indigenous people love, it isn't healthy and it was introduced by Europeans.
but there is a dark history to it that I think that people don't realize, which is basically that for a lot of times, especially on the plains or in certain parts of the country, when we were forcefully starved, that was one of the only things we had.
Sheila Flaherty is an Iqaluit-based chef who specializes in adding new tastes and textures to traditional Inuit food. She's cooked all over the world, and she was on MasterChef Canada. That bannock doesn't have a home at her table.
Is it bannock? I don't know. It certainly doesn't look like any bannock that I've ever seen. It looks like it's been run over a few times and left in the dirt.
We wanted to know, in her mind, is bannock an Inuit food, despite the colonial history?
The way I prepare Inuit food, I bring it to a next level. I try new ways to prepare seal meat, especially caribou, narwhal, maktak. So, I would say I would be on the side of saying yes, it's part of Inuit food.
The Canadian Museum of History went back to their original Facebook post. They edited it to apologize for not, quote, contextualizing the colonial history of bannock. What they didn't apologize for was using such an ugly bannock in their photo. Bannock may have a mixed colonial history, but if you're going to show bannock, at least show the good stuff. Kent Driscoll, APTN National News, Iqaluit.
Remove them, edit them, sink them, or vandalize them. The conversation about colonial monuments continues across the country. While provinces and cities take time to weigh their options, the list of relics up for debate grows longer and longer. Lindsay Richardson reports.
The statue of John A. Macdonald in Kitchener, Ontario, vandalized twice in as many days. Disputes about colonial relics usually play out online, but not this one.
The point of the red paint is a statement, a very strong statement at that.
Officials there agreed to leave the red paint on the statue, but another group decided to clean it off. Much to the relief of this woman, Macdonald's distant relative.
I don't really like that it is left there because that's just symbolizing more. It's violent to me.
It's a Canada-wide debate, each province and city taking its own approach. Halifax, for one, will keep its John A. Macdonald statue despite fierce opposition. Montreal spends thousands each time they clean up John A., now subject of dueling petitions.
John A. Macdonald was responsible for genocide. He did it out in the plains through famine. He also did it through the residential schools.
Those who know the statue's sordid history ask the city, what gives?
It's really unacceptable in the age of truth and reconciliation to still have Victorian morals about these things. You know, it's time to move ahead in the 21st century.
Donovan King, a self-described anti-colonial tour guide, points to plaques glorifying the murder of savages and a statue of Jacques Cartier above disembodied Indian heads. A recent petition started by an Indigenous student calls on McGill University to remove a statue of its founder, James McGill, because he was a slave owner, and replace it with a tree.
There's a lot of fun and creative ways where we can say, yeah, this is racist, you know, this is part of our racist and genocidal history. We're not going to display it in public, but we are not erasing history.
Progress on renaming stalled due to COVID-19, though the list of names at issue grows.
There's still a lot to be found.
Eric Pouliot-Tisdale, a Mohawk Innu genealogist, scrutinized Montreal's metro names for a column in the Eastern Door newspaper. Many of them, he says, are implicitly racist. Jean Talon, the first intendant of New France, tried to assimilate First Nations. Lionel Groux called the Mohawks a poor race. Honoré Beaugrand, a politician, threw a feast when Louis Riel was executed. Berry de Montigny owned native slaves. Pouliot-Tisdale says finding the information is much easier than forcing change.
That little elite is mostly all white European descents of the same social classes. They're all somehow cousins or knew each other or they all studied together. It's sectarian, you know?
Female leaders are not immune. In Winnipeg, a statue of Queen Victoria was covered in white paint. The city's mayor says he's also looking at the Volunteer Monument, a memorial to those killed in the Northwest Resistance of 1885, one believed to implicitly celebrate the slaughter of Métis. Removing the monuments altogether is controversial. David Chartrand, president of the Manitoba Métis Federation, wrote in a column this week, "Rather than erasing the colonial history of Canada and risk forgetting about it, we want these monuments to stand the test of time and give us the opportunity to tell our story." King says there are alternatives. Add a plaque, for example, or sink the statues in a scuba park. Julio Tisdale has his own ideas.
Maybe put him in a certain department of a museum, like in a cage or in the basement, and say, here's the ancient monuments that Montreal was exposing.
The future is unclear. The options, numerous. Those who feel strongly agree. The worst thing to do with colonial relics would be to do nothing at all. Lindsay Richardson, APTN National News, Montreal.
The city of Winnipeg, with Canada's largest Indigenous population, is putting neighbourhoods, street names and monuments up for public scrutiny. The city says the Welcoming Winnipeg initiative is just one aspect of the reconciliation process, but not everyone agrees with scrubbing our history. I spoke with Andrew Carrier of the Manitoba Métis Federation earlier. Earlier this week, it was announced that a new committee is going to be formed to look at creating new and historical markers and place names or removing and renaming existing ones in Winnipeg. How do you feel about the committee?
Well, first of all, we really need to look at the realities that the changing of the markers or renaming does not change the history of what really happened here in Winnipeg, and especially to the Métis people of Winnipeg.
MMF President Chartrand recently argued against erasing the colonial history of Canada. Just what you'd said, taking down these markers doesn't erase what happened. Can you talk about the conversations that happened around the MMF cabinet table on this topic?
Well, thank you very much. We did have a really good discussion, and at the end, the majority and all of us have decided that it's more important to keep the information, the names of the people there on the buildings and on the street, as a reminder it gives us an opportunity to really tell us our story as to what happened here in Winnipeg, and explain why through the reign of terror, through these dark years, why it pushed the Métis into hiding, and why we've lost a lot of our land and our heritage because of that process.
So you think some of these statues and markers are kind of teachable moments when you come across them, you can have those conversations. That's right?
That's correct. So it's more important to remember that of what happened in history, and to give us an opportunity to educate and to not repeat history. By removing it, we're really concerned that it doesn't take away the pain and the suffering that's occurred. The fact that Wolseley and his men had free reign and caused so much terror by hunting us down and killing and raping and pillaging. There's some realities, but at the end of the day, removing the name from site does not take away the actual history of what happened to us.
Do you think that there are some statues or names that just have to be gone?
No, because again, this is history, and of course history is always written with the air of the victor. What's more important is to understand why it happened, and not to repeat that we need to be more respectful of and accepting of each other. And this is a bigger issue that we need to address.
Last question for you. I know our mayor, of course, Brian Bowman, is Métis here in Winnipeg. One of the monuments that he said particularly rubs him the wrong way is the volunteer memorial that's near City Hall. It has all the names of non-Indigenous men who fought in the rebellion here in 1885, slaughtered multiple Métis people. He said that, that's one that kind of bothers him. Do you think that something like that, I mean, your position is that those things remain and we discuss them. Do you think something like that should have kind of an addendum maybe put up too that goes along with it, that explains that to people?
Well, not so much an addendum. I think what we're really needing to do is focus on the other side of the story and recognize all the good work and the realities of our what the Métis have brought to Winnipeg, and the fact that we were very accepting and of many people, and that was still is true today.
Well, I thank you for taking the time out of your afternoon to chat with us about this.
Thank you, and have a great afternoon.
You too. Renewed calls to close the Thunder Bay jail once and for all, but a new one still hasn't even started being built. We'll find out why after the break. Off to the east coast, we got 20 with mixed sun and cloud for St. John's, 25 and rain in Halifax. Happy Valley, Goose Bay, 13 with some showers in Ukshibak, sunshine and 22. Sept-Îles, 20 and rain. Quebec City, 24 and rain. Toronto, 29 with showers, 26 and showers in Ottawa. Thunder Bay, 29 and sunshine. Timmins, 24 and cloud. The Pas, 24 and some showers. God's Lake, 27, mostly sunny. 33 for Winnipeg and sunshine. 34 for Brandon and sunny skies. 26 and sunny in Swift Current. 23 and rain in Saskatoon. 24 and sunshine in Stony Rapids. 21 and sunny in Uranium City. There are renewed calls to shut down the Thunder Bay District Jail. Earlier this month, Kevin Mamakwa was found unresponsive in his cell. Mamakwa is the 9th person to die at the jail since 2002 and the 7th Indigenous person. Mamakwa was also the nephew of Ontario MPP Sol Mamakwa, who joins us now. Condolences to you and your family, and thanks for joining us. What can you tell us about your nephew, Kevin?
Kevin was a 27-year-old man, and about 3.5 weeks ago, he passed away in the Thunder Bay District Jail, and so it's been a tough battle for my brother and his family, and obviously the extended family as well. So it's very tragic.
What specific concerns do you have with the Thunder Bay District Jail?
I was there about just over a year ago, and I got to visit as an MPP. And when I seen the conditions of the jail, it's not a very safe place for people that go in there as inmates, or even for the staff that are there. Like, it's the working conditions. It's just not safe. It's pretty much a hellhole that doesn't. It's like a big warehouse of people, or a factory of people, where you have deal with that, people that are dealing with mental health issues, people that are dealing with systemic issues, or addiction issues.
A new jail's been on the books for years, and construction hasn't even started. Would a new jail ease some of the concerns that you have with this facility?
Again, a number of, there's 9 people that have died over the last 18 years or so. 7 of those are Indigenous people, and that's not right. We need to, Grand Chief Fiddler, and also, my brother, and, even the Ontario Human Rights Commissioner, and even the inquest call for for it to be shut down, and I think that's what needs to happen. And even a temporary facility would work. And when I seen the bed there, and I seen a small cell with 2 bunk beds, and then with 2 people below the bunk bed, and it's 6 people in there, and that's not proper. And I think we need to be able to send maybe even healing lodges for our people, because some of the stuff that they're dealing with are intergenerational, and we need to be able to deal with those. Some of these people do not belong in a jail. They do not belong in a jail.
You're the MPP. You're an MPP in the area. Are you seeing? What's the plan?
Well, I think that's the thing. Like, certainly there's a overrepresentation of Indigenous people in that jail. I've seen it with my own eyes. Not only that, even the Kenora jail, there's an overrepresentation, and then I think we need to pressure this government to have a some type of intermittent plan so people don't continue to die, and we need to pressure the government that's here, and that's what we're pushing for. We can't have our people continue to die. It's not a very a system that's that's helping our people. We need to find ways work together on finding ways on how we can address the system there.
Well, hopefully this does get addressed sooner rather than later, like you pointed out to several concerns there over the past 2 decades. Thank you for taking the time to join us, and again, condolences to you and your family.
Okay, thank you for those kind words, and thank you for having me.
Time for another break, but when we come back, a grad ceremony for inner city kids in Saskatoon. Stay with us. To northern Alberta, we got 22 with some rain for Fort McMurray and Grand Prairie. Edmonton 18 with showers, 16 in showers in Calgary. Showers and 20 for Kamloops. Tofino, sunshine and 18. 22 in rain in Fort Nelson, 14 in rain in Sandspit. Dawson City rain and 20, same with Mayo and Beaver Creek and Whitehorse. Trout Lake 19, same with Fort Laird and 19 and rain. Tuktoyaktuk 4 degrees and rain. Sax Harbor and Palatech, same thing. Whale Cove, mix of sun and cloud and 8 degrees. Repulse Bay 13 and cloud. Cape Dorset 15, lots of sunshine. Clyde River 6 and mostly sunny. Kids who live in the core neighborhood of Saskatoon often struggle to get through high school, but this week the Neighborhood Youth Centre celebrated a big victory. APTN's Priscilla Wolf has the story.
Today is a celebration of the first ever graduating class from the core neighborhood Youth Co-op. The Youth Centre has been operating for over 10 years and helps youth with high school. But this was the first they ran high school classes full-time and out of the Youth Centre. This is in partnership with Bishop Murray School and Greater Catholic Schools. They have intimate classroom settings, and the students work with teachers and 6 staff throughout the school year. Executive Director Marcel Petit says this is a tremendous celebration.
It's an amazing process to get to this point, because now we had 4 young women graduate this year for the first time. They wanted to stay here. They stuck it out. And they all see what they've done, right? Their accomplishment is there.
Helping youth succeed is the goal, and Aubrey Graspy is a fine example of that. At 11 years old, she was doing crystal meth and partying with the wrong crowd.
I struggled with crystal meth for 6 years. I struggled with lots of other drugs and alcohol as well. I've done things I'm not too proud of, but it's definitely taught me a lot of lessons.
She's come a long way in the 3 years that she's been coming to the Youth Centre. Now that she's finished high school, she has other goals that she's going to accomplish.
My next steps are to go to school for the trades and go to construction and labor. And after that, to go to school for youth work.
18-year-old Terry Belisle plans to pursue a career as a hairdresser. She recently lost her mom and is thinking of her today as she celebrates her high school graduation.
I feel very proud to graduate. I am the second of my dad's kids to graduate, and I am the first of my mom's kids to graduate. And I hope she's proud of me.
This is just the beginning of the next chapter of their lives for the high school graduates. The Core Neighborhood Youth Co-op does have the capacity to have 15 students enroll for grades 10, 11, and 12, and they are hoping to have an even bigger graduating class next year. Priscilla Wolf, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
That's your news, wrapping up the work week for most of us, but I will see you back here tomorrow with your APTN News Weekend. Until then, I'm Melissa Ridgen. Have a great night.